last time we were talking about, you being more business oriented. And I think as long as I can remember, you have been an A type of personality. So
100%.
what do you think psychologically creates that in a person? Do you think it's their childhood? Or
I
do
think
you
everything
think...
comes from your childhood. To be honest.
Well, there's the whole thing, what's it called? Nature versus nurture.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at like the type of personalities, and the most I can remember is A type of personality, but there is 4, I know that. So that
Yeah.
kind of looks like a genetic scale.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about genetics.
Sure. I think it comes back to, well, number one, being firstborn. Firstborn has a lot to do with it because then from that point on where you become a big sister, a big brother, you automatically assume responsibility for the ones that come behind you.
Yeah.
And I feel like parents, they depend on the older one to be self-sufficient, to go and, like with my daughter, my oldest, she can clean her room herself. She can get ready herself. She doesn't need me to wake her up. She's got an alarm clock. She's pretty independent. And then when the second one came along, I would ask her, and of course she was younger at this point, but I would ask her, oh, can you go get me a diaper? Or you can go get me this or that. And so she would be like, oh yeah, because she was like the little mommy, you know what I mean? And I feel like every firstborn does that. They take on that sense of responsibility.
Well, I think another side note, it's kind of like parents expect that of them too, because once they start having more kids, they're like, okay, let's get you responsible.
Yeah, because
so
I can only take so much.
Yeah,
right.
I get
And that's true. And I see, as far as me, Paul, I had 2 younger brothers, you and Paul's 2 years younger than me, and then you're 10 years younger than me. So
You're like my mom.
yeah, little mommy. And what's interesting is my firstborn, Emma, she was 6 years older. Let me think. Yes, 6 years older than Adeline, and then she's 10 years older than Elijah. And so it's kind of the same scenario because mom had me when she was 26. I had Emma when she was 26. And I had Eli when I was 36. And that's 10 years apart. It's the same dynamic.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That's super weird.
And reverse too.
Huh?
It's 2 older, like, sister. It's 2 sisters and 1 brother. We were 2 brothers and 1 sister.
Yeah. And so, like with Paul, I always grew up and, mom would do all the extra things that she was doing for Paul, So I feel like, and I was like her little helper, and I love that. That was like my thing. And I was able to help take care of Paul and then eventually take care of you. And I love that. So I feel like there is such a sense of responsibility. And then also not wanting to disappoint. There's a lot of pressure on the firstborn, I feel like, to want to do everything right so that they don't upset everything else, So that being said, that happening, during childhood, and that's not a bad thing, I think that's just how a lot of times things play out. But then that crosses over into, habits that you learn through school, like wanting to, be a straight A student or
you excelled in school, right?
Yeah. And then in college too, I was on the dean's list, and I mean, pretty much every semester, so, and that's how I would eventually, and this past couple of years, it kind of like set in, I'm like, why am I striving so hard in business and, and through college, through anything that I do like 100%, like, and if I could do 110%, I would, just because I want it to be done with excellence. And so then I struggled with perfectionism,
Yeah.
and then my worth being wrapped up in perfectionism. That's scary,
Yeah.
because
Perfection's a hard thing to do all the time.
Yeah, that's exhausting. It's exhausting. And so I think with like my kids, and that's just because I feel like I read a lot. I listen to a lot of books. I love psychology, and just knowing. And when I was going through school, I had a lot of psychology courses in nursing, because I did a science degree. And anyway, a lot of people are the way they are because of things that happen, during childhood, during adolescence, and so on. And you'd carry those experiences through your entire life. And you honestly have to heal from that, and it's not necessarily like something horrible happened to you, traumatic or whatever, but certain circumstances are traumatic over time, and you don't know the difference.
Yeah.
You don't know the difference. So, for instance, like with Paul, a lot of time and a lot of decisions that were made as a family, you had to make those decisions, right? Like as far as homeschooling and all of that. And I think that was the best thing that could have ever happened to us, was that mom and dad decided to homeschool. Simply because, and of course he doesn't feel like it then, because at that point you feel different. You don't want to feel different than
like
your
a
friends,
weirdo,
right? And then people are looking at you like, oh, you're the homeschooler. What, you're not socialized. Actually, we were more social than anybody like else that went to public school. We had horseback riding lessons. We did all the things, and singing lessons and all of it. Church. We were so involved with church. So many activities. Totally. And then at the end of it, we actually, like, I could, like in high school, I didn't really get along with a lot of the kids there because they were dumb. I mean, I'm like, y'all are ridiculous. Yeah, I don't deal with that. And then when it turned on me, I was like, I really don't deal with this, And so the gossip and the BS, it's just like, this is so dumb. So my friends in high school were my teachers, like, because we could have real conversation, like, and not be like, that they're going to turn on you or all the drama, like, so all of that, like being able to be homeschooled, being around like dad and mom's businesses, being around adults, people would always say that, oh, you're not, you need to socialize with other kids. No, I'm actually capable of having a deep conversation, a respectful conversation with adults, and most people nowadays cannot.
Yeah.
They can't do it, because they get all bent out of shape and they throw a tantrum and they, pack their bags and they go home. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I didn't spend most of my time in, homeschool, so I still kind of have like this thing about talking to people that are older. 27 yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I still
Happy
have
birthday.
What?
Happy birthday.
Oh, I thought you were telling me something. I had something in my nose. So I was like, oh no.
No.
But I still have trouble talking to people that are like, I don't know, like your age. I feel like I'm like inexperienced or whatever. I kind of like I'd rather talk to someone my own age.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what a lot of people feel.
Yeah, well, it's separation. It separates people.
Yeah.
When in truth you should be learning from those people, because they're ahead of you, at least in years. Not a lot of times in maturity.
No.
But at least they've been around a little bit longer and can maybe say, hey, do this, don't do that.
Watch out for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Duck. So, and I feel like having been around that, it's age is just a number. You know what I mean? And people have different levels of experience. You might have a 16-year-old that's been through hell. versus a 28-year-old that has had a posh life and doesn't really have any experience in life. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're put all on this earth at the same time, and that's what, it doesn't matter the age. You can learn something from other people that you interact with, you know. Um, so I think we're all blessed to be on this earth at the same point in time in history that we're in. Then we all have something to give and learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So, but that took a while for me to step like into that, you know.
So coming off of, how did you get out of the cycle of putting your value in perfection?
Oh, so constantly, I mean, for years, I was in realizing that I was in survival mode. Survival mode, probably since I started the workforce, which was I was 16. Okay, because I wanted to strive, I want to achieve, I want to do this, da, 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 da. And it's just, it was constant, and I was never good enough in my mind because I hadn't achieved XYZ, you know. So that's what drove me. And I realizing that there are millionaires around me,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that have achieved a lot, things that they never thought they could achieve, but it's still not good enough.
Yeah, like having all the money and success and still being unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still, you know, looking for the next thing. They're never satisfied. They're, you know, going. Or I'm like, look around. You've got, you know, you're a millionaire. You have all these beautiful things, a beautiful home, beautiful family. But you can't even focus on that. You can't even like say, wow, I mean, I'm totally blessed.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at the next thing, and you're never going to be satisfied, and you're never going to be good enough because you're not doing something currently.
That's
right
how
now.
billionaires are born.
Well,
If everyone was happy with being a millionaire.
Or they freeze.
What do you mean?
So they stop there because they don't know what else to do, or they don't want to make the wrong move because their self-worth is so wrapped up in not failing.
Yeah, they're afraid to lose what they've got.
Right. So I'm all for going for it, but also recognizing, and I still do. I still love it. I still feel like I thrive under pressure, you know, and I feel like that stems from being in survival mode. But my health has declined because I'm in survival mode constantly. I you know, the cortisol levels, eventually your adrenals, they give out. And what do you have if you don't have health?
Not a lot of time.
Right. Exactly. It's very sobering, right? That, and then just having a stressful household and thinking, okay, I'm achieving all these things, but my household, my kids are, you know, are feeling it, the stress, you know. So then once I went through a few things in life, you know, dissolving a marriage and all of that, I wanted my household to have peace because there were so many aspects there that complete chaos. And I was like, I'm not doing this, you know. And then realizing what the role that I played in that, you know, because a lot of things were external, but the internal part of it was, you know, how did I play a role in that? And then also my role as what I allowed in my house or in my space, you know, that affects my children, because I don't want my children to grow up and be in survival mode, you know. And it's kind of a pendulum swing. Like, you know, you might have, I use this example all the time, you know, if you grow up in a household that is, you know, messy and there's just clutter everywhere and all that, a lot of times kids, if they grow up in that situation, the pendulum swing is they always want it to be clean. not cluttered. You know, they have to have it. And it's because they experience something that they're like, I'm not doing that. You know, that drove me nuts. And it smelled, and I was worried about being the smelly kid at school. And, you know, all because they had, you know, cats and dogs and whatever living in the house with us. And I had no choice. But now I have a choice and I'm not doing it. Right? Or vice versa. You know, the house is always clean or whatever. And so now I have a little bit of freedom and I'm just going to live my life and it's going to be where it is, you know? So my concern is that I was going to be so focused on achieving the next thing that my kids were going to feel like, I don't want to achieve anything because I never even got to see my mom.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Well, where I was.
Yeah.
Especially through high school. I didn't care. I didn't care about A's at all.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, part of it's my ADD. I just, if it doesn't interest me, I'm not interested. Yeah. But I still feel like there was some things that I felt if I fell short on, then I would feel like a disappointment.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen often because mom was always working.
Yeah.
And dad was always working.
Yeah.
So I was getting raised by you and Paul, which was.
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So I think it does have an effect to where it's like every time I see my parents, when I do, they're stressed out all the time.
Or it's a negative interaction that, hey, you got another blue slip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, great. That's the only interaction. And you're creating memories. And this is my fear for my kids, is that all of their memories was me getting onto them. You know? And that there were very few and far between where I wasn't stressed out, where I was engaged, where we were just doing a puzzle, having fun. No care in the world. You know? Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of fun growing up. Not interactions with mom and dad.
Right.
They'd take me places and I'd have fun there.
Yeah, but it was isolated.
Yeah.
But on the day-to-day, it wasn't fun.
No.
Yeah. And that goes back to them being focused on having to provide. And
they're in survival mode. Dad was definitely in survival mode.
Yes.
Even when we were doing great.
Yes.
He was in survival mode.
Because you can't let up. You have to keep the momentum. Because if you let one thing fall, it's all going to fall. And that was his mindset. And that was my mindset for a very long time. And being a single mom for a very long time, it was ultimately my choice to be a single mom. But it's in my mind, it was far better than the alternative for, our situation. But
that's interesting. Now I'm rethinking my childhood.
Sorry. Okay, but I have had a lot. So I was in that mode for years and years and years. I mean, from age 16, and then some really unfortunate stuff happened. And so then I'm not only in survival mode, but I'm building walls, and I'm like in protection mode too, right? And so then the only outlet that I could feel like there was, I can achieve, and I could get that, I could make the grade. I can, work, and be rewarded for my work. And that was a positive reinforcement to me, So years of that, and then go until I'm 35, right? And have my husband, and he says, let me take this as far as the financial burden. Let me take this. And I have my business. I'm like blowing and going. Like, I'm like, good. I don't need any help from nobody type of thing, which is not true. I have a lot of help from a lot of people, but getting to where I was allowed to rest. Whoa, and I slept and I slept and I slept and I slept because I was up at 4 And my normal schedule: up at 4, went to bed at 11. Up at 4, went to bed at 11. And that's how I was able to get all the things done. Right?
That sounds exhausting.
It was, but it was normal to me until I had the opportunity to step back and be like, "Whoa, like this isn't normal."
This is not normal.
Right. And I allowed my body to heal itself as much as it could. And then I started having, then you have pregnancy, and then you have issues and stuff. And but recognizing I need a break. And I take priority over XYZ, and actually doing it. That was the hard thing, allowing myself to break for a minute.
So I guess that's what you should strive for, perfection in just your life balance.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There's no balance. And taking that aspect, like that mindset of, I have to find a work-life balance. There ain't gonna be no balance.
Well, I mean,
it's counterbalance. Whatever whatever comes at you, you have to learn to deal with it and balance that part of it based off of what hits you.
Well, I'm just saying, like, a way to live that's healthy. That's what you should strive for, perfection, and not because I mean it is going to be a balance as far as a healthy life. So I mean, you can work yourself to death, and you can not work at all and be 400 pounds. Right. So, I mean, physically, 400. Yeah, of course, that's what that means. Physically, 400 pounds. I'm emotionally 400 pounds.
Me too. Been there. Just
kidding. But instead of finding the perfection in, what you're doing, that next level, being perfect so you can have success.
Right.
It's more about, okay, how do you want to live this next 80 years?
Yeah.
Because that's all you got.
Yeah. And the fact that it doesn't just end with you. If you have kids, like, your life right now is their childhood. So, and everything stems from the experiences when you were a child.
Yeah. Do you think, have you seen any, well, I would call it like scars that you've left on your kids, but have you seen any like residual effects from maybe Emma with how you were living?
I think before Adeline came along, I mean, we were like this. Me and Emma. She's my little tag along. She went with me everywhere.
Your sidekick.
Yeah. And I feel like once we started having more kids, she misses that. And so she misses, I miss it. Whenever it's just like me and her, and I'm like, oh, it's my girl, And, but I do, the residual that I've seen so far, and she's 10 now, about to be 11 in October. She is, from the very beginning, she had separation anxiety. And I feel like that was the external circumstances that we were going through at that time, to where she just needed me to be a constant.
Yeah.
And
the rock.
Yeah. And if I would leave a room just to go into the kitchen or whatever, she'd be like, Mama, like she'd freak out. She never wanted to sleep in her own bed, it was just me, so it's fine. She could sleep with me. But I think she does have, especially when there's transition, from one household to another, she does have
she doesn't like change.
Bad anxiety. No, she has to be constant. She wants to know what the plan is for the next week. She wants to know who's picking her up when. And if you're late, then what's the deal? And she doesn't want to be late to school because she wants to be there as early as she can be there, so she's prepared for the day. Okay, so...
Sound familiar?
Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Right? She wants to get A's. She wants to do her work. She wants to do extra work, right? Because she wants to get... They have things called merits at school.
Well, I can see her looking at you as like a role model.
Yeah.
And...
My thing is, did I do her a disservice?
Well, in the early years, no. But I think later on, you need to let her know that, hey, it's okay to slow down sometimes.
And that's what I tell her
Yeah.
right now, because she's like, well, because she was feeling pressure, I guess, from a teacher or something. And she's like, she wants me to be perfect all the time. You know, she wants me to get perfect grades. And I said, whoa, time out. First of
Yeah.
all, if there's an issue, you tell me about it and I'm going to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Second of all, you don't have to be perfect. I want you to do your best.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to do your best.
Sometimes your best is better than perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I said, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have a 4.0. If you fail a test, Emma, it's not the end of the world. It's fine. Okay. So, and I feel like lately she's been like, okay, kind of calming down a little bit. And I'm like, you know, it doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be perfect all the time. And I told her, I said, I don't want you to wear that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's too heavy for you. That's too heavy for anybody to try to be perfect all the time. You know? So I said, just do your best with what you have. And then if there's an issue or whatever, we'll handle it together. Mm-hmm. You know? Because that's my job as a mom. My job is to make sure she feels supported and to guide her through life. Not cut things off from her, during life, but just to guide her.
Yeah.
And when certain things happen, or drama in the friendships or whatever, it's my job to give her perspective to where she
guidance.
Yeah.